also write, or we'll still record something so that for those who are not around, they can get it later. So I'm talking about data analytics now. Data analytics is a broad term, covers a lot. If you can still hear me, please just react. Let me be sure we are together. I'm not talking to myself. Okay, thank you very much. So data analytics is a multidisciplinary field. It's wide. It involves collecting data. It involves um, the analysis itself, and then it involves the presentation, visualization of the data. So from the point where you collect the data to when you analyze the data and down to where do you now visualize the data, all of them are data analytics. So data analysis, as in SIS now, not TICS, is what most people are used to. But analytics itself is a broader term. I just wanted to differentiate that very well so that we understand it. So analytics is everything. Analysis is when you now, after you've collected the data, what you do to get results that you now visualize for people. Okay, so what we are interested in is everything. We'll start from the collection down to the analysis itself, and then talk about visualization. So if you're writing, you can just write data analytics has three parts. The first part is collection of data. Second part is analysis of the data, and then the last part is visualization. So you can just put that down if you are writing. So why are we starting from collection of data? Now you realize that if you do not collect your data very well, you have an issue with analysis itself. If you do not collect data very well, that's why if you have ever done a research before, your research instrument has to be vetted. For those of us who have finished uni, or those who are in that class where you now do your project work, your supervisor is supposed to vet the research instrument, which is usually the questionnaire. So the reason is because those questionnaires are supposed to give you the right kind of information that will now give you the the that will now give you the kind of result you're looking for. Now, what I mean is, if you do not, for example, if you want to work on, let's say, the prevalence of hypertension. Let's use hypertension as an example. If you want to work on the prevalence of hypertension in consumers of pork meat, the prevalence now meaning you want to know how many people who consume pork meat have hypertension in a year, because probably you're suspecting that there is something in pork meat that makes people to have hypertension. And so what you now want to do is to check, is this true or not? And if it's true, how true? Do you understand what I'm saying? So let's assume that's what you want to work on. Now, in your questionnaire, things you're supposed to there are certain things you're supposed to ask that if you do not ask, they will not give you that information. I don't know if you're following me. If you don't ask those things, they won't give you that information. So part of this is that first of all, in a questionnaire, you're supposed to get what we call the social demographic data. Now that social demographic data is not for fancy. You may say it's not that useful, but what social demographic data does is that it helps you understand where this person stays and how it affects, because many times you may think that it's just about the pork meat, but by the time you start analyzing, you realize that many people who are within a particular range have this hypertension more. I don't know if you're following me. So that makes you now understand that, oh, this is not just about pork meat. there is an age, or there is it an or a now? But there's something about the age that's correlated to hypertension. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So this is why the research instrument has to be vetted very, very well before you go ahead. So it's not just about it's not just about the what do you call it, the questionnaire, but making sure that the questionnaire is well structured. So after the social demographic data, most times you have sections which are created based on the objectives of the study. Now every study has an objective. That you have a topic is good, but you need to have an objective for why you are choosing that topic. For example, we've talked about the prevalence of hypertension in people who consume pork meat. So that's good. But we are now going to say, okay, in this what will be our objectives in this study? So one of the objectives can be to know if there is a particular age group, just like we have said, or to know if there is a relationship between marital status. Is it that people that are married get this thing? Because you can't just say, like, it's too broad to say that it is everybody who consumes pork meat that has hypertension. So you need to still break down that research topic into various objectives so that you'll be able to do the research work properly. What that means, what I try to say is that it's not just about a particular topic. Sorry. Can you hear me? Please react. Okay, so all right. Okay, Faith can hear me. Favor can hear me. Okay. John, can you hear me? John, can you hear me? John is not here. King, can you hear me? Okay. Grace, can you hear me? Nedu and Enoch, can you hear me? Okay, Grace can hear me. Enoch, all right. Okay. Perfect. So that is just it. That is just it about data collection. So you have to be very careful. Now in certain places you have to you don't just move and start giving people questionnaire. If you're going into a company or a proper institution, you have to get ethical clearance. That ethical clearance is to be sure that what you're doing aligns with the ethics of the institution. Every institution have their own ethical laws and all of that. So when you are going to do a research, especially within an institution or for the government, you need to be sure that the research does not break any ethical law, so you don't put yourself into trouble. Okay, so you need to be sure of what the laws are. If you're doing for a business, you don't need all that. And just ask the business. Probably the business, they want to know which of their products sells more. So you just need to get their data and analyze it for them. Already these businesses have records. Some of them use computers, some of them use handwritten ledgers. So you could just get that data and you analyze it for them, then visualize it. Okay. So that's all I will say for now concerning data collection because of time. Now, when it comes to data analysis itself, this is where the majority of the work is. Data visualization also have so much. You could use anything. You can use your normal pie chart or your bar charts. But then if you want to do complex visualization, that's where you start needing things like Power BI and all of those apps. But I think the main work is in the analysis part. Okay, so why it is like that is because first of all you need to understand the different kinds of variables. Not all variables are the same. I'm just giving a brief summary. Now, when I talk about variables, each question is a variable. Each question is a variable. Each question in your questionnaire. That's when we this about academic research now. Each question is a variable. In business analysis, each item also is a variable. So let's say, for example, I don't know if you're following me. Let's say, for example, now you are on question 1. Okay, let me share something on the screen so that we follow. Let me share something on the screen. I kept something I was going to share. Okay, can you see the screen? Can we see the screen? Can we see the screen? Okay. So, yeah, so let's look at question 1 now. We are talking about the demographic characteristics of respondents. So, number 1 is sex. Now, that sex is, what I'm trying to explain is that sex is a variable. Now, in analysis, one of the first things you should be able to determine is what kind of variable you're dealing with. We have different kinds. That's not what I want to talk about today, but I can't skip it. Do you understand? In analysis, we have nominal variables. If you are writing, you can write it down. If you're writing, you can write it down. We have the nominal variables. We have the ordinal variables. This is purely for academic research now. In business research, there's a way you deal with that one. You have nominal variables, you have ordinal variables. I think you have what you call categorical variables. Let me just use those 3 for now. Now, what is a nominal variable? A nominal variable is that kind of variable that does not have intrinsic value in itself. Now, what I mean is this. If you are analyzing question 1 now, let's say you want to know the number of males that are involved in your research. Male does not have a value separate from female. Like, you just want to know the gender. It's different from you're trying to know what example do I use now? It's different from you're trying to know how many times somebody consumes pork meat. If a person tells you, I consume pork meat once a day, or twice a day, or 3 times a day, it has intrinsic value in itself. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. It has intrinsic value. That option 1, 2, or 3 has intrinsic value in itself. So that's more of an ordinal variable. But when you talk about things like sex, when you talk about things like age, when you talk about things like marital status, tribe, in fact, almost everything you have in the demographic section is usually a nominal variable. If you're following, give me a reaction. Let me know we are following. Okay, so everything there, it doesn't have intrinsic value. If you're a male, you're a male. It does not change anything specifically, except you want to now start going into genomics and all of that. But if you're a male, you're a male. If you're married, you are married. If you're widowed, you're widowed, and all of that. So it doesn't have intrinsic value. So when we go into the coding itself, you realize that you can assign any value you want, so long as you can remember it, to any of these options. So I can decide to assign 0 to male. I can decide to assign 1 to female. Are we following? Or I can change it and assign 1 to male, assign 0 to female. Are you following what I'm saying? think my network. Are you following? Okay, so that's it about the variable. So that's the first thing you need to understand about the analysis part. What kind of variable am I working with? That's the first question you ask yourself, so that you know the right way to code it. And I must say this now, when you are coding your questionnaire, make sure you write it down somewhere, or you type it out somewhere, in case you forget or you get confused. What do I mean by coding? Because that's the first thing you do. What I mean by coding is you have to assign a value to each of the options in your questions. That's literally what coding means. So for example, let me share my Excel screen with you. Is it Excel now, or I'm using WPS, so it's not Excel. Let me share it with you. Okay, so this is it. This is the platform where you will do your data entry, because at the point of data analysis, the first thing you will do is you need to code your questionnaire. But before coding, you need to understand what kind of variable it is, so that you can code well. But after doing the coding and all of that, you need to now start entering your data into the spreadsheet. So this is Excel. Sorry, 1 minute. So the first column is usually where you write your serial number. Are you following? So let's assume we have the total number of persons that are going to that we are targeting as our, what do we call it now? The research population. The sample size, yeah, that's what it's called. The sample size is 10, or let's not do 10. Let's go with 10. So your serial number starts from 1 to 2 to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Are you following? Now let me use that our demographic, social demographic data section to do something. So the first one there is sex. Okay. After sex, the next one we have is age as at last birthday. Are you following? Age as at last birthday. After age as at last birthday, the next thing you have is marital status. As if you're married or not. Marital status. Okay. I hope you are seeing it. If you can't see the screen, you talk. Okay. Then after marital status, you have tribe. After tribe, have religion, and then year of study. Religion, and then year of study. Okay, so remember this one here, don't use the numbering on the Excel sheet. If not, you get confused. Do your own numbering, because usually this first row is where you're going to place all your variables. If you go into another section talking about a different thing, you start placing all the variables here. So number 1 is like your first respondent, number 2 is like your second respondent, number 3 is the third respondent, up until number 10. I don't know if you understand. That's what it's like. So remember, we said that you need to understand what kind of variable you're dealing with. So now we want to code sex. Another sex, what do we have? Let me share this thing again. Under sex, what do we have? We have male and female, right? Under sex, we have male and female. Can you see it now? We have male and female. Under age, we have three variables. Or we have three options rather. We have less than 20, 20 to 40, and greater than 40. Are you following? Are you following? You are following, give a thumbs up or something. Under marital status, okay, thank you. Under marital status, we have single, married, separated and divorced, widowed. Under tribe, you have Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, others, religion, Christianity, Islam, traditional religion, others. Year of study, 300, 400, 500, and 600. Somebody's mic is on. Please mute your mic, Fuzi. Please mute your mic. Thank you very much. Okay, so see how we are going to code it now. For sex, let's assign 0 to male and 1 to female. So anywhere, this is why I say when you code your questionnaire, make sure you write it down somewhere so that you can, in case you forget what you used to code what, because that can affect your result. You may be thinking that what you used to code the male option was 1, but what you used was 0. If you make that kind of mistake, that means the result is useless. Do you understand? So you have to write it down somewhere. So you notice that what we are using for male is 0. What we are using for female is 1. Then, for age at last birthday, Danjuma, are you, Enoch rather, are you intentionally raising your hand? Okay, what do you have to say?
Okay, the question I want to ask is that for the coding, is it possible that we just use the letters like as they are? Like instead of coding it to numbers.
Is it possible that you use what?
Like you use the letters the way they are.
A and B and C. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, it's possible, whatever you remember. But that will be only possible because this is a nominal variable. If you're coding an ordinal variable, a categorical variable, you need to use numbers that have real value. But don't worry, just write down your questions. There'll be time for questions so that we wouldn't be interrupted. Yes, just write down your questions. Okay, so this is 0 and 1. For age at last birthday, I like starting from 0 so that I'm not confused. So if you prefer, you can do it that way also. 0 and 1. So for age at last birthday, I'll start with 0 for less than 20, 20 to 41, greater than 42. For marital status, single 0, married 1, separated or divorced 2, widowed 3. For tribe, Igbo 0, Hausa 1, Yoruba 2, others 3. For religion, Christianity will be 0, Islam will be 1. I know we get it now. Traditional religion 2, and then others 3. Year of study, you get it now, just like that, 0, 1, 2, 3. So basically that's how you do the coding, especially for nominal. Remember, this is a nominal variable, so that's why you can use those numbers without having to fear what the numeric consequences are. Okay, so let me just do something here. So let's assume our first respondent is a man. So his sex is what? Male. Remember, we are using 0 to represent male. So I'll put my 0 here. Let's assume the man is less than 20 years. What are we coding it as? 0, right? So put 0 here. Let's assume he is single. Remember our marital status, single is 0. Everything is looking like it's going to be 0. Okay, let's assume the tribe also. Okay, let me use something different. The tribe is Yoruba. Yoruba is the third on that option list, which is 2. So we are going to write 2 here. Religion, let's assume the guy is a Muslim. Okay, he practices Islam. So that will be 1. Christianity is 0, so this one will be 1. Year of study, let's assume he's in what level now? 500 in school. So that would be number 2. Okay. Okay, so this is what your spreadsheet is going to look like for the first participant. Okay, thank you, Enoch. I saw your question. We'll respond to it. So this is what the spreadsheet is going to look like, and this is how you're going to continue doing it. You understand? So if you're giving a questionnaire and somebody says enter the data for me, this is exactly what the person is talking about. Understand what kind of variable it is. Is it a nominal variable? Is it a categorical variable? And then from there you can work up. I hope that's clear by now. I want to see if I can get another data set that would show us how to code categorical variables. Just give me a minute, let me get something, because it's different when you're analyzing categorical variables. You code them in a way that reflects the value of the answers. And then before I forget, you need to know the right answers when you are analyzing your data. You need to know what the right answers are, because some questions give both wrong and right options. Not all the options are correct. In the social demographic data, some options are correct. Sorry, all the options are correct rather in the social demographic data. So it's just to know who is who. But when it comes to the categorical variables, not all the answers are correct. So you need to know beforehand what are the correct answers, so that when you now start calculating some scores during your analysis, you wouldn't have a problem. Let's say you're doing a KAP study, for example. That KAP study is meant to show you the knowledge, the attitude, and the practice of maybe people who what example do you use now? People who use paracetamol as pain reliever. So you want to know, do they know what paracetamol is? How often do they use paracetamol? That's like the attitude. Then what exactly is the practice? I don't know if you can hear me clearly. Fuzi, please mute your mic, Fuzi. So that's why you need to know the what do you call it? You need to know the right answers beforehand. Okay? So just a minute, I want to get us a questionnaire that would reflect that, so that we can understand that one well. So So, but this is how coding is being done. If that is all you learn today, you've learned something very powerful. You've learned something very important. Okay, how to code questionnaires, because that's the foundation of data entry. If you don't know how to code questionnaires, then you will mess up the whole data. Okay, so coding is important. Understand which is nominal, understand which is not nominal. Okay, once that is understood, then the rest are not so difficult to handle. Not so difficult. Okay. I think I'll just look for an online data set that will give us what we want instead of taking time looking for the one I have in my system. Data questionnaire. Images. Okay, yes. So let me share this thing. So should open link in YouTube. Okay, so I'll share the screen with you now so you can see just what it looks like. Let me try and zoom it in a minute. Okay, so well, it seems the site is having some issues. So let me just try and explain. Let me just explain what I am talking about. This is not what I need for you. In the next class, I'm going to get a better example so that we can see. So for ordinal variables, the major difference there is I'm going to get another questionnaire prepared before time. This other one is not giving me what I want. I'll get another one, and you just need to know that the major difference is that those ones have values of their own. So for example, let's say we want to know the topic of our study, like we said, is that you want to check the prevalence of hypertension in people who consume pork meat. So like I said, in that section of the questionnaire, you now want to know how many times does this person consume pork meat in a day. Okay, so let me share this other screen with you. Okay, so you want to know how many times this person consumes pork meat in a day. Now this row will be number of times they consume. You can just sometimes you just code these things with short forms so that you don't take time writing questions. So number of times pork meat is consumed in a day. Number of times, you can do something like hyphen consumption of pork meat, consumption of pork meat daily. Okay, so let's assume you have option A, B, C, and D as 1, 2, 3, 4, and you decide to code. Now the right answer, because you want to check how the number of times they consume pork meat affects them. So for you, any consumption of pork meat that is more than once a day, this is just a hypothetical example. For you, any consumption of pork meat that is more than once a day is harmful. So that means when you're taking that into note, you need to code the answers in a way that gives that one daily consumption of pork meat a higher value. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So let's do it this way. Option A is 1, that's you consume pork meat once a day. Option B is 2, option C is 3, option D is 4. So instead of starting from 0, you're going to code it in a way that 1 will have a higher value or a lesser value depending on what's yours, because you're going to now, what that is going to mean is that people who consume one pork meat, whatever the weight is per day, are healthier. I don't know if you follow me. So let's just give it a score of 4, because you're trying to check the correlation. So let's just give it a score of 4. This is a hypothetical thing. So let's assume this person now consumes his own 3 times a day, and we are giving 1 a score of 4 so that we can go down. 2, that is consuming pork meat 2 times a day, will now have a score of 3. Consuming pork meat 3 times a day will now have a score of 2, and then consuming pork meat 4 times a day will have the least score, which is 1. I don't know if you follow me. This thing is a bit confusing. Let me explain it again. When you are coding categorical variables, you need to code it in a way that you achieve the aim of the research. Let's assume, because before now you would have done a literature review. We'll end this class very soon, but just listen to this last part before we go. Let's assume that you've done, of course, you would have done your literature review before now. And when you did your literature review, you realized that pork meat is correlated to heart disease. And you're trying to say that people who consume less pork meat live healthier. So when you're coding your questionnaire, you need to have it at the back of your mind that consuming less pork meat from your, that's why you do literature review before you start doing questionnaires. You don't just jump into, there are different kinds of researches. This one is not that kind of research where you just jump into the whole thing. But for this kind of research, you would have done your literature review and you would have known that pork meat, excessive pork meat consumption is correlated to heart disease or whatever. So when you're now coding your questionnaire, consuming less pork meat should have a higher value, because at the end of the day, you're going to say something like so number of people consume less pork meat, so their health index is this. And if you didn't code the questionnaire well, it will now reflect something negative, that people who consumed more pork meat lived healthier, which could also be true. But it depends on what you did in your literature review. I hope I'm not confusing anybody. If you're confused, react. because this is a very, very confusing part. If you're confused, react. Let's know if we are all following. If you're following, react. Since nobody is confused. If you're following, react. Okay, so everybody is following. Nedu, you raise the hand. You have a question. If you have a question, type it. I just need to know if you're following or not. Okay, if you're not following, do react now. Let me see it. If you're not following, react now. Let me see it. Okay, Enoch is not following. Who else is not following? Onyinye is not following. Who else is not following? Okay. This is where we are going to end this class. So I think after now you can ask your questions. But what I'm trying to explain is this. Let me explain it again so that some of you may now follow. When I gave an example, number of times a person consumes pork. I hope you can still see the screen. Number of times a person consumes pork meat in a day. Now I'm trying to explain to you how you code categorical variables or maybe ordinal variables. They are kind of like almost the same, not exactly, but we'll explain those ones later. What I'm focused on now is teaching you how to code data and how to enter them. So if you're coding any data set, any kind of, especially when it comes to ordinal and categorical variables, make sure you know what the right answer is so that you code it properly. The reason is that you're supposed to give the right answers a particular value. The right answers should have the right value, and in most cases, it's not every time, but in most cases they have a higher value depending on what the topic is. Or if the topic is coined in such a way that is negative, then they will also have a negative value. But just bear in mind that you need to have the right answer. So I now give an example. We are trying to check for what the correlation or the prevalence of heart disease in people who consume pork meat. And the first question under the second section is, how many times does this respondent consume pork meat daily? And I said you have 4 options. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and D is 4. Now in our literature review, we were told that people who consume less pork meat have less heart disease. So I should bear that in mind. So bearing that in mind means, especially when I know that part of my objective is to say that the score for people who the heart disease score for people who consume pork meat is so and so. This thing, we will not understand it once, but just listen, just listen, because there's a lot of work that should have been done in the methodology, that should have been done in the literature review. Because in the methodology, you're supposed to say what answer is correct and what answer is wrong. And then when you now calculate your scores based on the objective, what is the benchmark for example, in this topic, a healthy person and somebody who is not healthy in their heart. So, but just know that you're giving all of these things scores, they have intrinsic values. So let's assume that you're giving 1 a score of, somebody who consumes pork meat once, a score of 4, and somebody who consumes pork meat twice, score of 3, down like that, 3. Somebody who consumes pork meat 3 times a day, I'll give him 2. Then someone who consumes pork meat 4 times a day, I'll give him a score of 1. So let's say that this person, now look at your screen so that you see what I'm sharing. Let's assume now that this person, I hope he's still sharing. Let me say camera is off. Sorry, this thing disconnected. Just hold on a moment. We have a technical problem. Okay. Technical glitches everywhere. Sorry. Let me sort this out. Okay, let me just sorry, we have a technical problem. That's why you can't see my screen. Let me log in again. Okay. Yeah, we are in. Okay, so let me show that again. Can you see the screen now? Okay, so let's assume that this person consumes pork meat 3 times a day. So according to the way we are coding it, it's going to have a score of 2. That's all I want to show you for today. All right, I think that's enough information for us to battle with. Let's have our questions. We didn't plan to spend more than 1 hour. Data analysis is a gradual thing. It's not something you learn once. You need to learn everything bit by bit until you grasp it very well. Okay, so let's have our questions now. I think James, are you going to handle that, or will you just go ahead and ask your questions? Hello? James, can you hear me? Okay, don't know what's happening. If you can hear me, anybody who wants to ask, just raise your hand and ask questions so that we know. Okay, someone already asked one question. Yeah, it's breaking. Can you hear me? I can't hear you well. I don't know if I...
Yes, I can hear you. So,
okay.
They can just go ahead and ask their question on the chat, or they can raise their hands now, but attend to Enoch's question.
Okay. I'm trying to get at that question. Where is it? Enoch's question. Okay, so Enoch asked I can't see Enoch's question. No. Maybe you should resend it or something. What I'm seeing is what you typed. That's what you typed, James. I can't see Enoch's question here. Enoch, can you type it in the... Yes, the class is recorded. It's recorded. I'm doing a screen record. We couldn't record from Google directly. Okay. Enoch's question is it a must we must code the options with numbers, or can we make use of the letters the way? Okay, so I think I've answered this question now, Enoch, right? Is there still any confusion on that? Enoch, you can unmute yourself and answer. Is there still any confusion on that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you were saying that time, you said like there is an exception now. You said we can do it, but there is an exception, but it is the part of the exception that is not finished explaining.
Okay, what I was explaining is this: when it comes to coding categorical variables, you cannot use letters because letters don't have numeric values. You know, we are dealing with a data set, and this what has values is numbers, not letter. So, for example, if I'm trying to analyze if the number of times a person consumes pork meat in a day affects their heart, and I give somebody who consumes pork meat once a day A, and give someone who consumes pork meat 2 times a day B, because somebody who consumes 3 times a day, I give person C, and all that. When you now want to calculate, because when you're done with coding the data, you're going to calculate. There's something called a knowledge score, for example, in a KAP study. Let's assume you just want to know the knowledge of the people who consume pork meat. This is just an example. It doesn't fit in very well. After coding everything, you're going to sum the responses for each participant in that section. So when you now sum it, you can't add A plus B plus C. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. It's not going to give you any particular value. You only sum numbers. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? When we do data sets, I think you will understand it more. But just know that it's not possible in all scenarios, especially when you're coding categorical or ordinal variables. But if you're coding nominal variables, then it's possible to use it without having any problem. But why stress yourself? Just use numbers all through. I wouldn't advise you to use letters for some and then now start using numbers for others. Just use letters all through. Okay? Sorry, just use numbers all through. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other question? Any other question? Any other question? Is it that we are so confused we don't have any question, or I was so good that you understood everything? Some people were saying they didn't understand when I was asking who understands and who doesn't understand. People like Nnam Onyinye, and there's one other person. I can't remember the name now, but there are some people who say that it's time to ask your questions if you have any issues. Because what I want you to go home with today, first of all, is on the importance of why we are doing what we are doing. It's going to take some time. Like I told you, I don't expect everybody to follow through to the end, because this is kind of difficult. But if you can follow through to the end, it's going to really help you, because we have serious scarcity of researchers, people who really know how to analyze data. And the only way a country goes forward is through analyzing data that help you get the kind of information you need to innovate. So if you don't understand anything, don't just keep quiet. Like we said, after now you may have opportunities to work on some projects yourself. You want to be sure that you are reliable. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask. You can ask. At the end of today, you should have known at least what a nominal variable is, what other kinds, and the opposite of nominal variables, which are ordinal or categorical. Later we'll go more in details into that. Then you should have known how to code nominal variables, and then how to code ordinal or categorical variables. Okay? Any question? If there is none, I'll say I did a good job for today.
Anybody has any questions anymore?
Okay.
I don't know if you can hear me. Just react, please. Okay. So thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who came to this part today. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. So as he said, obviously the class is tough, but to those that stuck through to the end, I noticed that some people left even when the class was going on. At some point we had about 16 people, 16 participants, but we dropped down to about 11 right now, or even less. Well, anyways, thank you to everyone. So when you get back to the group, a review will be dropped, so that you can rate how the class went, or you can tell us things that we can improve, or things that we should keep the same. Just rate our efforts today and see if there's any room for improvement or something like that. So, I think since there is no questions anymore, we hope to keep this class very short. That's we didn't want to take much of your time. The more we tell you, the more confusing it gets. So it's better we just take this bite size, take class in bits. Well, anyway, so thank you every single person that came, and I believe that'll be all for today. So you can leave the meeting. Just the review, the link to the review or the code to review the class and leave your opinions will be dropped in the WhatsApp group. Emmanuel, please stay behind.
All right.
Every other person, you can leave now.
Thank you very much for participating. We'll let you know when next.